All right, here's how it sits right now. And this was tweeted out by CBS Sports is where this graphic came from. So Kevin Stefanski is your new head coach in Atlanta. All right, which, by the way, him and Baker Mayfield taking shots at him on social media. The fact that Baker has a lot of hard feelings toward Kevin Stefanski and how he treated him in Cleveland, and now they're in the same division, that's going to be a fun rivalry to watch. Baker always bringing a little bit of edge to the any team he's played for, to be honest with you. All the way back to Oklahoma when he did the you-know-what on the sideline. People are going, what are you talking about, Clayton? Just type in Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma sideline, and make sure the kids aren't watching, okay? Jeff Hafley is the new head coach in Miami. We're still waiting for those assistants to fall into place, right? You've got John Harbaugh, Mr. $100 million man up there with the New York Giants, okay? So he's the new head coach with the Giants. You got Robert Saleh. They're finalizing the deal, but it sounds like he's going to be the new head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Something would have to fall apart, dramatically there for that not to happen. So again, Stefanski in Atlanta, Hafley in Miami. You got Harbaugh with the Giants, and you got Saleh with the Titans. So the Vikings signal bidding war on Flores. There's people that look at this and say, oh, now we don't have a chance to get Flores. That's not necessarily the case, although it is highly unlikely. Let me explain. Adam Schefter tweeted out, defensive coordinator Brian Flores has signed a contract extension with the Vikings. If he does not receive a head coaching job this cycle, he will be back as the team's defensive coordinator. That sounds pretty finalized, doesn't it? I heard some stuff behind the scenes that he could still back out of that. Now, when you hear signed, boy, that sounds like that's a done deal. I'm going to go ahead and say remove Brian Flores from the list, okay, just to kind of not get our hopes up, right? Now, he could still get a head coaching job somewhere, and that could trigger something with one of our choices, Daronte Jones out of Minnesota, passing game coordinator. I imagine that if Brian Flores does get a head coaching job somewhere, that Daronte Jones would probably be their top choice, if not a top 3 choice, to promote him to DC. So that's how this kind of plays in. It's highly unlikely, highly unlikely, especially with this tweet coming out, because to me, this was a signal like, hey, don't even think about it, guys. We will outbid everyone. Brian Flores is our guy, right? We've already signed the deal type thing. Now, Adam Schefter typically gets information from the coach's agent, so maybe that was Brian Flores truly confirming, like, I'm definitely coming back in Minnesota. Don't even try it if another team wants to have him as their DC if he doesn't get a head coaching job. However, let's talk about how all this comes into play, all right? Because we still got how many vacant head coaching jobs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 jobs, right? So let's talk about the leading candidates for these according to the betting market. So I combed through 3 different AI AI sites, had them compile a bunch of information. So you guys may see on one gambling site, this is the favorite, on the other it's not. This is kind of compilation of all that, okay? Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. We got to go pretty fast here because we got a lot of information. Arizona Cardinals ownership is reportedly leaning towards familiarity and defensive stability after the Jonathan Gannon era. Okay, I guess they haven't had enough of having a defensive-minded head coach yet. You guys know how I feel about that. So Vance Joseph to Arizona could trigger Jim Leonhard staying in Denver. Just like we talked about, if Brian Flores gets a head coaching job somewhere, Daronte Jones, one of our top choices, would probably be promoted to DC and Minnesota to keep him in place. Same thing applies with Jim Leonhard in Denver. Vance Joseph right now is the heavy favorite due to his previous ties to the organization and strong relationship with the ownership, okay? And again, it's not just the compilation we put together. It's also over on Bet Online, the odds are saying Vance Joseph minus 160 to get the job. He's got the best betting odds. Then it's Sean McDermott. Then it's Joe Brady, okay? And then it gets to be quite the reach there, right? With Mike LaFleur actually down there at plus 1,000. So top choice, Vance Joseph. Second choice, and I got to be honest with you guys, if I was looking for a head coach, I believe Clint Kubiak will be my guy, the offensive coordinator for the Seahawks. Top choice if the team decides to prioritize Kyler Murray's offensive development, if Kyler Murray's even going to be there, right? Who knows? So Clint Kubiak second. And then according to this, although Sean McDermott's second in the betting odds, according to Bet Online, Brian Daboll, former head coach of the Giants, he's gaining steam as a reclamation project specialist for quarterbacks. So obviously he is a kind of a quarterback guru, if you're supposed to be anyway. Who knows if he actually is. But he is nowhere near the top in terms of bet online and the betting odds. However, it did mention his name. So once again, Vance Joseph, if he gets the head coaching job in Arizona, then that means Jim Leonhard might be promoted to DC. If he's not promoted to DC, then Jim Leonhard's still on the table. We'll find out if Matt LaFleur is truly interested in Jim Leonhard, former Wisconsin Badger great, as soon as the Denver Broncos get eliminated. If they do this week by the Patriots, that's what I'm rooting for. I'm rooting for the Patriots so we can get Denver out of there and see how many of these Denver coaches that Matt LaFleur might be interested in interviewing as well, right? So keep that in mind when it comes to Vance Joseph potentially going to Arizona, therefore having a trickle-down effect with Jim Leonhard. Let's move on to the second team here, Baltimore Ravens. Following the seismic firing of John Harbaugh, the Ravens are looking for a modern approach to maximize Lamar Jackson's window. Leading candidate, or one of the three leading candidates, Jesse Minter, defensive coordinator for the Chargers. There's nobody in the Chargers organization that we find ourselves going, man, we really like him, right? So this doesn't have a whole lot of effect on us. We'll blow right through it. It's Jesse Minter. He's the current betting favorite. His ties to the Harbaugh family and defensive success make him a natural fit. Then you got Clint Kubiak, OC from the Seahawks. Then you got Anthony Weaver from the defensive coordinator from the Dolphins. So it sounds like Jeff Hafley goes to Miami Dolphins. As of right now, Anthony Weaver is going to stay the DC with the Dolphins. Okay. So if he were to get the head coaching job with Baltimore, right? And again, it's probably a bit of a long shot, but if that happens, that's going to trigger Jeff Hafley to try to poach from our organization to get his next DC if he's got somebody there, whether it's Derek Ansley or DeMarcus Covington. So what are we rooting for here, guys? We're rooting that Anthony Weaver stays the DC with the Dolphins, right? Because if he gets a head coaching job somewhere, that's going to trigger a little bit of poaching. Now you may be going, but hold up, Clayton. Let's hope that he does poach from our organization, and then we can hire Anthony Weaver. There's a slight chance that they could move on from Anthony Weaver as the defensive coordinator. I mean, I imagine Jeff Hafley could make that decision if he wanted to, but as it sits right now, I feel like it's highly unlikely they're going to move on from him. And again, if he gets, a head coaching job somewhere else, obviously he's not going to be available for us, right? So just keep in mind Anthony Weaver having a little bit of effect on our defensive coaching room. Next, the Buffalo Bills. With the firing of Sean McDermott following a divisional round exit, Buffalo is the jewel of the remaining openings. And I agree with that. I think you've got a rabid fan base. You've got a brand new stadium getting open. A lot of buzz around that. You've got a great quarterback in Josh Allen, although he did crap the bed in that playoff game. I'm not going to be fake about it. You can't carry that ball like a loaf of bread. I know you get cocky because you feel like Superman out there and you're running over DBs and everything, but man, and I hated to see his reaction after the game too. That was tough to watch, seeing how, and he took full responsibility, full blame for it. It wasn't all his fault, obviously, but the turnovers are a problem. Still, that is the jewel right now of head coaching stops for sure. So Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Bills, is kind of the leading candidate that they may want to just promote him to head coach and kind of keep things rolling. If you do that, you're truly saying Sean McDermott was the problem, right? And I think they're pretty much saying that out loud. They're not trying to hide it. There's a big rift between Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills ownership at the time being. So really, really interested how all that's kind of fallen into place. So the internal favorite to provide continuity for MVP Josh Allen, he's already completed multiple interviews. All right. Next on the list, Brian Daboll, former head coach for the Giants. Fans and odd makers are high on a reunion between Daboll and Allen to recapture their previous offensive dominance. Obviously, Brian Daboll had been there before. If I remember correctly, he was the offensive coordinator, and he was kind of credited with bringing Josh Allen along, kind of molding him into the quarterback he is. He went to the Giants to try to do the same thing with, I think, Danny Dimes, and then obviously them moving on from him to other quarterbacks. So keep an eye on Brian Daboll. And then Davis Webb, quarterback coach for the Broncos. None of this really has any bearing on us, right? So we'll keep it moving. Again, just a quick update there. Cleveland Browns. Browns are looking for a coach who can stabilize the quarterback situation and build on a talented young roster. The early favorite here, or one of the early favorites, I should say, one of three, Grant Yudinski, the offensive coordinator for the Jaguars. That'd be great for us. That doesn't affect defense at all, right? Let them do that. Let them hire him. Next on the list is Jim Schwartz, the defensive coordinator for the Browns, the top internal candidate if the Browns choose to maintain their elite defensive identity. So the Browns could just promote Jim Schwartz, the head coach. To me, that makes a lot of sense. And then go get a great young mind, right, to come in and be your OC. That makes a lot of sense to me if I'm Cleveland. However, if Cleveland decides to go with Grant Yudinski and try to keep Jim Schwartz on, will Jim Schwartz get a head coaching job somewhere else? He's not mentioned anywhere. So it sounds like Jim Schwartz is not a hot commodity to be a head coach. My guess is that great defensive mind will stay in Cleveland where that dumpster fire is. Mike McDaniel, former head coach of the Dolphins. Keep in mind, Mike McDaniel, much like Brian Flores, has kind of agreed to a deal with the LA Chargers to be their offensive coordinator. However, he can still get a head coaching job. He's been linked to this. Odd makers have placed him high on the list as a genius hire to fix the offensive woes in Cleveland. Could you imagine Mike McDaniel being the defense or being the head coach and Jim Schwartz being the defensive coordinator? I want to see it because Mike McDaniel is so damn quirky. He's so odd. He kind of brings a youthfulness to it. Watching Jim Schwartz, see him walk in with his ankle showing in those joggers would be absolutely hilarious to me. Kind of hoping that happens. But again, when you look at the defensive landscape here for us, the Browns' job really doesn't have any bearing unless the new head coach come in and surprise everybody and fire Jim Schwartz. Then Jim Schwartz goes to the top of our potential DC list, right? Bill Belichick disciple, came up through the ranks. I think he was in Cleveland with Bill way back in the day, followed him around. They had a lot of success together. That would be one I'd be very interested in. I just don't see the Browns letting go of him. I imagine whoever the Haslam family hires as their head coach would tell them right off the bat in the interviewing process, Jim Schwartz is to not be touched. He is a made man here in Cleveland. I imagine that's what would happen there. All right, next on the list are the Las Vegas Raiders. After the Pete Carroll experiment ended quickly, the Raiders are reportedly looking for grit and a long-term culture builder. Leading the way, Brian Flores, DC from the Vikings, the betting favorite to bring a disciplined, hard-nosed defensive identity back to Vegas. Guys, Brian Flores in black and silver, yeah, with Fernando Mendoza as the quarterback. I think they've got the number one pick. You guys correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. I believe they've got the number one pick. They draft Fernando Mendoza, bring in a young offensive mind to coach him up. Maybe somebody who was a quarterback coach somewhere else, maybe like Davis Webb, right? It shows they're interested in Davis Webb as the potential coach as well, linked to the Raiders due to his ties with GM John Spytek. So, he's just the quarterback's coach unless Denver would plan on promoting him somehow, some way to OC and firing an OC. Maybe they don't have an OC. I don't know. Maybe they can block that. But could you imagine Brian Flores getting the head coaching job, then them hiring Davis Webb as the QB or as the new offensive coordinator, and then drafting Fernando Mendoza number one? That'd be a fun little side project for us to watch here at PTA. That would be really, really interesting. Clint Kubiak, offensive coordinator for the Seahawks, is also in the running there as well. So Brian Flores, leading candidate. Let's back up. How does this affect the Green Bay Packers? We interviewed Daronte Jones, their defensive passing game coordinator. So if Brian Flores gets a head coaching job with the Raiders, then that means the Minnesota Vikings will probably try to promote Daronte Jones to defensive coordinator. Therefore, that would block us from hiring him. They would kind of have first dibs. Obviously, the guy, if they're willing to give him the same amount of money for the same title, he's not going to pack up his bags and leave, right? That's just that's the way that kind of goes there. So that could come into play here for Daronte Jones. Now, here's the other thing too. We interview for Daronte Jones, right? There could be a bidding war on his services. Now, the fact that he was not their DC, I don't think they can technically block him. But again, if they're willing to give him equal or more money, he would probably want to stay in Minnesota, where his family already is, right? Now, with that being said, let's say that can't happen. They can't block anybody from getting him just by a simple promotion, right? Then Brian Flores would probably be wanting to bring Daronte Jones with him to the Raiders. You see what's happening now. It's now going to become a bidding war between three teams potentially: Minnesota, Vegas, and Green Bay. If indeed the Minnesota Vikings there's not a loophole in the rules somewhere where they could just promote him instantly and, okay, all bets are off. They get first dibs. They get to keep him, right? He'll probably choose that anyway, even if the rule doesn't apply. However, that's going to be a little bit of a bidding war too if they let him explore options there. So Daronte Jones might heat up real quick if Brian Flores does get the head coaching job with the Raiders. Now, what's the betting odds? We showed here, AI pulled all the information. They said Brian Flores was kind of the leading candidate here, right? With Davis Webb and Clint Kubiak in second and third. However, when you go to Bet Online, this is one of only two bets I could find for head coaching futures in the National Football League. They're saying Clint Kubiak's number one at -110. Davis Webb's is number two at +300. And then Mike LaFleur is number 3 at plus 350. Brian Flores is all the way down to like 5th at plus 900. That's very interesting to me. So maybe inside, and again, Vegas knows what the hell they're doing, guys. Not Vegas the team, Vegas the betting system, right? When I say Vegas, I'm talking about gambling as a whole. You got to really focus on some of the favorites. They know what they're doing in maneuvering these favorites. Maybe they want to go offensive minded. Tom Brady is on that board of owners, right? So he's probably looking at this from a different perspective, going, hey, we need to hire an offensive coach if he's got a bunch of say, which I think we would all agree he probably does. My choice, if I was running the Raiders, you guys know I like offensive-minded coaches over defensive-minded coaches for the head coach position. I would go with Clint Kubiak is what I would do. I would go Clint Kubiak, and I might try to go get somebody like Davis Webb to be my OC, right? And then hire a great young defensive mind. But keep in mind, if they don't go with Brian Flores there, let's say they go Clint Kubiak in that regard, they're going to have to go find a defensive coordinator. Now the market got even more flooded with more holes, right? So that's going to kind of hurt Green Bay's chances of getting or winning a bidding war with one of these potential DCs. So Christian Parker is the name that's not getting brought up much. You notice that? Now he'll be a hot commodity too as well, I'm sure. He's already interviewed with Dallas and several other teams, but you notice Christian Parker isn't being mentioned for anything here, right? So just keep that in mind. And last on the list of the 6 teams that's got vacancies are the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, Steelers are hiring. They're expected to stick to their traditional values of stability. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator for the Rams, seems to be one of the top choices. Currently the odds-on favorite. He's a young defensive-minded coach who fits the historical Steelers type. That seems to be what the Rooney family's always wanted, as a defensive-minded coach. Defense, but when you think Steelers, I always think defense and running game. Got a little bit away from that with Big Ben, but I could see that being the case. Another great fit, Brian Flores, defensive coordinator for the Vikings. So you got 2 teams, the Raiders and the Steelers, potentially trying to outbid each other for Brian Flores. I think he's interviewed with both, if I remember correctly. Chris Shula, that other name to keep in mind. So if Chris Shula ends up getting a head coaching job, guess what happens now? Defensive coordinator vacancy with the Rams is Sean McVay. Sean McVay probably going to go hire Raheem Morris again, I would imagine. Him and Raheem are real close. So Raheem Morris is on the list of potential defensive coordinators for the Green Bay Packers as well, because he's got ties to Matt LaFleur through the Shanahan-McVay coaching tree, okay? Now, Mike McCarthy, there's nothing I would want more, guys. Hear me out here. And we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is coming back. We don't know if Pittsburgh ownership wants Aaron back. I imagine they would. Who knows? Could you imagine Mike McCarthy getting the head coaching job at the Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers coming back for a final year to try to win the whole damn thing? I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty exciting to me. And you got to make a decision. Defense, I don't know who their DC is right now. He hasn't been mentioned in any coaching carousels to the best of my knowledge. But how fun would that be? Mike McCarthy in his hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, this Pittsburgh Steelers and Aaron Rodgers as the quarterback. That would be absolutely wild. Absolutely wild. So, yeah, there you go. That's the full coaching carousel that we're looking at right now. Again, 6 vacancies. You got the Cardinals, Ravens, Bills, Raiders, Browns, and Steelers. About 3 or 4 of those teams, whichever direction they go, is really going to affect our defensive coordinator search. It's going to be very interesting. Here's the other thing, too. Who knows? Maybe a team pops up and says, hey, we want to interview Sean Mannion for our OC spot, the Packers quarterback coach. Mike Vrabel. There was a little bit of rumors that Mike Vrabel, our receiver coach, and I think he might be our passing game coordinator as well. I haven't looked at that in a while. Mike Vrabel may end up going to Miami with Jeff Hafley. If that happens, imagine this. Imagine if Jeff Hafley hires Jason Vrabel as his offensive coordinator, our receiver coach, passing game coordinator. You guys double check me on that. I thought that was the title he had. I could be wrong. Imagine he does that. They sign Malik Willis in free agency. They sign Romeo Doubs in free agency. And you got a little Green Bay Southeast, man. I love it. I love it. I just love this time of year, man. There's optimism for the Packers' new season, right? There's a lot of all this just news breaking constantly with the coaching carousel. We've got the draft board built. You got a new link. Shout out to Emilio for posting a link for me in there. I spent about 3 hours yesterday putting data into the draft board. The draft board came alive. So you're now going to see all of the PFF grades that had rankings, okay, not We may go back and fine tune that and put even more information in, but they have to have a minimal amount of snaps for it to actually rank them. We've got the 2023 PFF college grades, 2024 PFF college grades, 2025 PFF college grades, all put right into the draft board, and it's all factoring into the final grade that we give. We got the PFF big board, and you're going, why are you doing it now, Clayton? It's early. I want the earliest information as soon as the college football season ends, because what's going to happen is insiders are going to start hyping certain guys because they got ties to the university. This guy's going to blow up because this guy's going to. I want to know how everyone felt when college football was fresh on their mind. So we got the consensus big board data going in. I got to finish that today if I get time. So that's going into the draft board as well. There's a ton of information that's going to continue to go in. And then, of course, coming up, we've got the college all-star games, right? You got the Senior Bowl. You got the East-West Shrine Bowl. We're going to be getting insiders saying, hey, here are my top 10 performers all week in practice, as well as the game, how they perform. We'll get those bonuses put in. And now we're waiting on the combine. Everything's going to happen in rapid fashion. In the meantime, do the Packers restructure contracts? Do they cut people? Do they sign free agents? All that stuff's going to come into play. This stuff is going to heat up so fast. I see other content creators, and they're kind of slowing down. There ain't much to talk about. No new news today. I'm over here going, boy, I'm really straining my marriage trying to find the time to go live because I need to talk about this, and this. I got 6 other topics we could have talked about right now. So it's a fun time of year, man. It's going to be an absolute blast. I hope you guys and gals are here for every step of the way. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about that coaching carousel trickle down? Who do you want the Packers to hire as their DC? What do you see as the best perfect scenario that you want to see unfold for the Packers to get the right person for the job? Let us know in the comments. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon so you're notified when we go live in the future. I got to go stack some firewood. We got a winter storm coming. They're saying we're either going to get an inch of ice or we're going to get 2 feet of snow. So your boy got to get some firewood in the dry. So that's what I'm going to get into right now. Thank y'all so much for jumping in here early. We had a huge crowd, man, over 400 people watching. Appreciate y'all. Do me a favor. If you're watching on X, click on my profile, go to our YouTube channel. You can actually see the entire conversation on YouTube. There's a bunch of people in here commenting, having a good time, talking ball constantly. The chat is way more valuable in here with these live streams than the information that this knucklehead talking provide you. So make sure you jump over here, hit subscribe, and click the bell icon. Appreciate everybody. I see all the regulars in here. Packer Doug, see Murph in the house. We got Chester Marco, Mike Berry, everybody in here, man. Nick McSwain, way too many to mention. Thank y'all so much for jumping in here. Greg Taylor, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, Ari Iron Miner, too old for this. Everybody. I think I seen Bates in here earlier. He's probably doing more important things now, but really, really appreciate everybody jumping in. We will be back as news breaks. I may come in with some wood chips on me, but we'll get it done for you, all right? So we'll see you guys here this afternoon for another live stream as soon as anything breaks. My name's Clayton. This is PTA. Go, Pack, go.
Here we go.
We're out.
Bye, guys.